So here at the Strata Conference here in Santa Clara, California with Nicholas Gruen. He is the chairman of the Gov2O task force in Australia. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Hi, Alexander.
So can you tell me a bit about, as we sit here in February of 2011, where Gov2O stands in Australia?
Well, I think it's doing pretty well. I always said it was a slow burn, a cultural thing as much as anything, not something that can be dictated from the top. What we did in 2009 was to make recommendations to the federal government to clear away a lot of the things that would be inhibiting the development of Government 2.0 from the top. That's effectively been done, but now we require projects to bubble up from the bottom, and that's happening. The culture is changing, but it was never, in my opinion, going to be some step change, but rather a gradual cultural change, and that's underway. I don't think it will kind of massively transform the way government is done. Government is always going to be a large organisation, but governments are now showing an increasing appetite for the repertoire of Web 2 and the ways in which it can help government, and I think it's in quite healthy shape.
What are some of the ways that these shifts that you're describing are actually helping citizens and leading to better outcomes?
Well, most of your viewers will be familiar with the Queensland floods. When we began the task of the task force in 2009, I actually had somebody within the Queensland Police Force communicating with me, saying that all of the ideas that he was putting up about using YouTube to communicate with the public, Twitter, Facebook and so on, were constantly being rejected, and he was regarded as a bit of a freak. I won't say it was necessarily to do with our task force, but we were part of the process by which this whole atmosphere changed, and the Queensland Police Force is now leading the world. I don't mean it's the best in the world, but it's one of the leaders in the world using social networking technologies absolutely naturally as part of its social outreach. And as a result, if you look at the Queensland Police's Facebook page after the floods, you will find literally hundreds, if not thousands, of comments from Queensland citizens, almost all of them saying what a fantastic job they've done and how much they appreciate being able to relate to individual police people and the police force using these kinds of media, which are very context specific, so one can have very high quality, very highly focused discussions based on particular situations.
So the pressure right now is on in the United States with respect to cost, when the economic conditions are affecting the ability of city and state governments to deliver in some services, and certainly the federal government is thinking very seriously about its budget and deficits, etc. As you've seen this evolution of Gov2O from a buzzword to something, well, it still is somewhat buzzy, that's what we used to say, but to where the ideas of it have actually gone into implementation, where some of the things, as you say, have at least been acknowledged in some of the challenges. How have the economic realities affected your thinking around Gov2O? How have they changed the way that, say, Australia, in your observation, has approached some of the methods or platforms that encompass it?
Well, I think that the economic story on Web 2.0 and Gov 2.0 is a very interesting one, because I think that, it simply stands to reason that if you are going to very substantially improve the quality of work inside organisations, that you can use that either to improve outputs or to reduce costs. The problem is that the sorts of cost reductions that are possible are not at all easy to put your finger on. But let me tell you a story about when we were doing the task force inquiry. That's the sort of inquiry that would take about a year to conduct normally. We did it through a blog. We did it much more efficiently because we then developed a very, very high quality interactive community. And a whole lot of things happened which illustrated to me how this process can really make things work much better and lower costs. So to give you an example, one of the things I realised fairly early on, I went to the team and I said, every one of the submissions we've got should be put up on our blog, and people should be able to make individual comments on every blog. The team then said, reasonably enough, well, we should ask for everybody's permission if we're going to do that. I'm not sure that that was right, because I don't see that there's any... I mean, people in a free country are free to comment on other people's submissions. They can do it on their blog, so I don't know whether we should have asked for their permission, but I was very happy to say, fine, we'll do that. So that involved a delay of, but it was only had to be a delay of 24 hours because the emails fly out and they can fly back in. Then people said to me, when I said I wanted all the submissions searchable, we don't know how to do that and we don't have the technical resources. We're very busy. I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 24 hours, see if you can solve the problem, because then I'll just put that up on our blog that that's a problem that we've got, because I'd like to ask people if they can help us. And of course, I only had to do that, and guess what happened? 24 hours later, somebody found a way to do it. So my point is that that's the kind of thing that before Web 2, I don't know, a month could easily pass where someone says, look, the chairman wants to do this technical thing, we don't know how to do it, and it sort of gets passed around, and there are a whole lot of other priorities, and you have another meeting and someone says, oh, look, we looked at this, and you know what I mean? This kind of months can go by on quite small things. So that's a way in which months don't go by. So it's, but then if you took that story and you said, how do we turn that into budget targets for departments? It's actually quite hard. So I don't have any ways of saying, here's a big high-level thing, and that means 5% of costs, and you could just take 5% of costs out of budgetary allowances. But I do think that this is if you know how to do this well and you know how to use it to push things along, you can actually make things work a lot better.
Are you seeing these initiatives more closely tied to the missions of different government entities or agencies?
I'm seeing them more closely tied to where people inside organisations get the bug. So it isn't... But one of the things that's interesting is that organisations that have line activities like police forces and so on, they actually find lots of useful things for these technologies. And I mean, it's been a real paradox that this is also true in the United States, I think, that it's been a real paradox that some of the organisations that are most focused on security and all of these things that we think of as antipathetic to Web 2 and Gov 2 have actually been some of the best at using Web 2 and Gov 2. So the intelligence community came up with Intellipedia. The Army in America has been tremendously good at using, I think it uses Facebook and it uses all sorts of social media technologies. But generally, it's not so easy to... generally, these things kind of break out. It's very organic, and that's why it's so hard to influence from the top.
So for people who want to learn more about what's happening in Australia in this space, what are the best websites for them to check out?
Good question. They can come and look at our website, but it's now not been going for a year, but that's gov2.net.au, and that'll give them a feel for the sorts of things we were discussing. There's been a bunch of websites that have kind of broken out. This is broken into the political consciousness, and the government of the day is very keen on selling the idea of information accountability, so they can come and have a look at my school's website, my hospital's website. You can imagine what they do. They try and provide quality data on the quality of different institutions that people choose between. There are some problems there, but we're trying to work on those things. So those are some examples. A lot of our public libraries are doing a terrific job. And in fact, one of the things that it sort of occurred to me while I was in the State Library of Victoria was I was thinking, Tim O'Reilly talks about government as a platform. If you think this is a cultural agenda, just announcing that the government can be a platform is just the beginning. It's certainly not the end of the process. So you then say, well, what part of government has the culture of government as a platform? Public libraries have had the culture of government as a platform for 100 years. So I regard the cultural sector, I've sort of talked about them as my babies. they're the people who can model some of this behaviour that can actually show lots of other parts of government how to do this, and how it's not particularly threatening. It's simply a matter of finding ways to make yourself a platform for other people's activity.
And speaking of platforms, if people want to follow you and learn more about what you're reading or writing about, they can do so on Twitter at?
They can do so on Twitter at Nicholas Gruen, just my name in a long string of letters, not sure how many it is, I think 12. And they can come and visit clubtroppo.com.au, which is a group blog I contribute to as well.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thanks very much.